Well, of course, the G7 summit has just wrapped up in Kananaskis as world leaders converged in this beautiful part of Alberta. But a real cool aspect of the story I wanted to share with you, someone who was invited to come cook barbecue for the G7 leaders. It's been a whirlwind few days for Graham Sherman, who is the owner of Tool Shed Beer and Barbecue in Calgary. ToolShedBrewing.com is the website. Graham, thanks so much for making some time for us here.
Yeah, thanks for having me as always, my friend.
It's a pretty crazy story, and I'm sure it's been a week you'll never forget.
Yeah.
Let's take a step back. How did this all come about in the first place?
Well, it's kind of a culmination of all the crazy, steps along the way in my journey. I mean, I used to work in Afghanistan for government and military clients, so I maintained a security clearance back then, and coming back home and starting Tool Shed, I've established great friendships and relationships with amazing customers such as the Kananaskis Golf and Country Club and the Pomeroy. And the golf course out in Kananaskis is our number one account. They're absolutely phenomenal. They're family to us. So every year when I go out to do a product knowledge for the new team that are going to be, running food and beverage on that golf course, I bring all my barbecues. I cook for them. It's just something that I do for a team that has done so much for us throughout, the pandemic and throughout the last couple of years, serving our products as much as they do. So I think the last thing is as you know, buddy, the last couple of years have been very good to us in the barbecue competition circuit. We've got a few world championship titles at the biggest competitions on the planet. And that's pretty humbling, but pretty darn awesome as well. So, I mean, when they get together and start saying, we want to have a meal that's a little less formal and a little more open and has people kind of in that back courtyard of the Pomeroy, like barbecue. My dear friend Darren Robinson, who's the general manager at the Kananaskis Golf Course, just said, "There's only one guy," and that's how it started. Global Affairs reached out to me and said, "We have to come, we have to meet you, we have to try the barbecue," and it went from there to wow, we got to take on this amazing experience.
Oh, that's crazy. So when did you get out there?
I got out there last Wednesday. Was it Wednesday? The 12th, whatever day the 12th was. The 12th to the 18th was my time. In the green zone, locked in there. It was amazing getting through I think there was 7 security check stops down that highway to get onto site, and you have to drive through X-ray machines and get out of your car. There's 4 security, like police officers going through your car, dogs sniffing it. It was wild. And like I said, I've lived in a war zone for a long time and worked on really big contracts for, government agencies and military units all throughout NATO. I've never seen anything so impressive in my life than the organization, the security, just all the details on how you could possibly put on an event like this with all the world's leaders. And just to look around, it seems like you're in a movie. It just didn't seem real. Everything that went into it.
Yeah, it's a unique location, isn't it? Because it's so isolated. There's really just the one highway that goes right through there, so they can keep that all pretty secure. But they're not messing around there, are they?
That secure from people. One of their biggest threats was grizzly bears. Some of those fences, I thought, they'll have a hard time. Bad guys will have a hard time climbing over those fences, but it was grizzly bears for all the police or RCMP or military, personnel that are out in the woods protecting that hotel. There's a lot of deadly wildlife out there, right? So there was a lot of encounters they had with bears.
I saw that. Yeah. So it's just it was you and your son then going to cook barbecue.
Yes, and what an experience! And of course, I think you've met my son. It's not just like my little guy coming to tag along. He's a he's a culinary ninja in his own right. He's going through the SATE culinary program, and he works at some really high end restaurants in town here. So, and our last world championship title was based on a dish that he created. So, I mean, he's a monster, culinary wise, and so. Man, there's nothing better than sharing this moment with your son. And at one point along the way, he made the comment, and this is just a perspective thing, but he's like, "Dad, all of these, police and all of these people like asked to be a part of this event." He said, "I love the thought that when our country wants to show off to the rest of the world, they brought us into barbecue."
Right. Yeah,
What a
exactly.
cool moment with your son, right? Yeah.
So was it up to you to kind of come up with something, or was it a list of this is what we need, or this is what the leaders want, or how was that handled?
Yeah, it was a collaboration with the amazing culinary team at the Pomeroy. So the executive chef there, and of course global affairs. Sitting down and discussing what we would like to do and what would cover all the bases. So it wasn't just, oh, I'm really good with brisket. It was
Right.
absolutely, we're cooking brisket, but also pork ribs will be a station, and then there'll be chicken. We have our Alabama white sauce chicken. We have this salmon dish. A good friend of mine in Regina, Rob Reinhardt, is another world champion barbecuer, and he allowed us to use his recipe for a maple chipotle salmon. And then we did a vegetarian gluten-free dish as well, a jackfruit, smoked jackfruit. It was kind of like pulled pork on a tostada. And so we kind of covered all the bases, we think. We had 5 stations, and any of the leaders and delegates could just kind of walk through the back area with their plate and try some brisket, try some ribs, try some chicken. It was pretty. It was a lot, boy, for just me and my son to coordinate all those barbecues, try to get things arranged with the hotel staff, and of course, I'm sure you'd understand too, with something of this nature, I can't just bring my barbecues in, leave them there, and roll. The leaders are coming in and out, and so
Right.
they hold everything off, and then they say, okay, at 5 p.m., get those barbecues in. You have 2 minutes. Get them in. Go, go, go.
Oh,
And then
wow.
dinner has to be served at 6, not 1 minute later. And I'm thinking, it takes an hour to start the fires.
Yeah.
So okay, start the fires now. We're gonna have to push hot barbecues into place, and it was one of the most insane things I've ever pulled off. But we did it. We got her done. It was something like 300 people. Yeah, running through there, eating all that barbecue, and there was a lot of barbecue we had to cook. 16 briskets and 200 racks of ribs,
Oh
and
my God.
it was a ton.
And just, I mean, even once you're in, like you've gone through the layers of security to get there,
Yeah,
like there's still like even just like you're cooking for these leaders,
yeah,
including of course the U.S. president.
yeah,
So what goes into, I don't know, like watching what you're doing, or
yeah.
the food itself? How is that handled?
It's pretty wild. I mean, once you're in, it's kind of neat. I would compare this to when I lived in Afghanistan. You're on this military base, Kandahar Airfield, for example, and when there's somebody else on that base, you're it's kind of like you're expected to be there, so you could talk to anybody. And like Lanny McDonald came one time to play hockey against the troops, and if you had seen Lanny at Chinook, it said, "Oh, hey, Lanny McDonald," he'd be like, "Oh, hi," you know,
Right.
but you see him on this military base. You're both supposed to be there, and it's like Lanny, and he's like, "Oh, you're from Calgary." And there's a
Yeah.
different level of comfort with bumping into people. That it's just you're familiar, and the example I would give is we'd be walking down the main path, and that our barbecues were right on this main path, so all the leaders would walk by every day back and forth in front of our barbecues and stop and have a chat, and holy crow, that smells great. And my son had all these moments of perspective where he'd say, anywhere else in the world that we would be, if we saw any world leader, it would be, oh my goodness. But it was just so common throughout this last week. It was, you'd look over and say, oh, there's the prime minister of you know or even better, somebody would come and take a picture, and we didn't know who they were. And so I'd say, oh, take a picture with my phone too. And then, hey, buddy, go look this person up, see who it is. And he'd say, whoa, Dad, that's the council president of the EU. Right. So there was a lot of
Yeah.
just comfort with that type of person, just kind of walking around all the time. But then when it came to cooking for the leaders, especially, of course, for Donald Trump, it was a whole different thing. So in the kitchen, there was some mandatory foods to have on hand at all time, and there was a list of things that at any minute he'll want, and we have to have them ready. And
Mhm.
so one of those was shrimp cocktail and a bowl of ice cream and
Oh,
spaghetti with
yeah.
meatballs, and so when the order would come in, the president wants a shrimp cocktail and a bowl of ice cream. Those two seem to go together
Yeah,
often.
sure.
There'd be this 17-year veteran of the Navy who is responsible for watching every piece of food that lands at the president's table, and he stands over you and watches every single thing that happens, and says, "Please change your gloves again. Please wash your hands first. Put
Yeah.
on another set of gloves." And then over this shoulder is this Navy, veteran, and then over this shoulder is Health Canada doing the same thing, and they
Oh,
want
wow.
two, portions of everything being cooked for him so that they can test it and make sure there's no bacteria or worse, right? And they're probing for temperature, and you're looking around trying to get a shrimp cocktail put together, and there's this scrutiny over the food that's I guess it's not a surprise at all, but it was just unbelievable to witness what goes into a bowl of ice cream going up to the president.
Okay. Well, I was reading. I mean, the Secret Service is there to keep them safe, but I mean, they got to eat too. And
Yeah.
you had some fans in the Secret Service.
Yes, and that was one of the most unbelievable things. Like, you have these moments where, I mean, I've had them here at Tool Shed as well, where I stop for a second and look around at what's going on, and you're just you're in your life doing your thing, climbing the ladder or pushing it, striving or whatever you want to call it. And if you don't stop for a minute and say, "Where am I right now?" Like, wow, this is amazing. Like, just to take a breath of air and enjoy where you are. I had a few of those moments, this week, and one of them was with the Secret Service. It was 4 a.m, and I'm about to try some ribs, and I was really, I was making friends with a lot of the police and the security details, but also some enemies, because they kept smelling the barbecue, going, "When do we get to try?" And unfortunately, they didn't get to eat the barbecue. It wasn't for the guards to support the security. And so I felt so bad that they had to smell it all day. There was guards all over posted, in my area, and they never got to try the barbecue. So at 4 a.m, I opened up the pit. I took out a rack to sample. I cut them, and like that, this gentleman's standing right there, and he's like, "What are you doing? What's going on here?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just got to try these ribs." And, the conversation was along the lines of, "Yeah, I know what you're doing. I've been watching you for days and waiting for my chance to try some of this." So, I've got just a cigar in my hand, sitting there barbecuing at the G7 and sharing ribs with the Secret Service is it's just something that I still can't quite comprehend. And they were such fans of it. They the next day during the big meal, one of the gentlemen came over and said, "I'm from Texas, and that's the best brisket I've ever had." And he gave me this amazing challenge coin from his security detail, and it's what an honor, right? Like, those things are really, really important from police and military units. They don't give them out just to anybody, and I got one for brisket. So that's pretty darn cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Were they serving beer at all during any of this? Did you manage to get any of the Tool Shed product? Were they drinking any beer at the summit?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. At each of these stations for the barbecue, there was also a sampling of beer. So anybody that was at this event could come around and try different beers from Alberta. They had a bunch of different cool brands. Grizzly Paw was also there, and Tool Shed beers were well represented as well. So
Nice.
pretty neat. Our non-alcoholic beer was a big hit. So Zero People Skills and Zero Red Rage were a tremendous hit. Not everybody can drink, especially when they're working and there's a task at hand this important. So I think bringing the non-alcoholic beers were a big hit.
Yeah, and I mean, just as an aside, it's interesting what the market that's become, and I did want to touch on that because I know you've been developing some of these products where it's a real focus on the craft beer experience, but the zero alcohol. There's a lot more demand for that these days, isn't
Oh
there?
my goodness! This has been my obsession for years. It's been years that we've been developing the way that we do it. We do it differently, of course, from most people. We don't make a product that tastes like beer, but it's not alcohol. We take our actual award-winning beers and we de-alcoholize them. So we have, for all extensive purposes, it's kind of like a reverse osmosis, and we push our finished product through it, and it de-alcoholizes it, and we're left with this, one tank full of alcohol water, colorless, flavorless, odorless alcohol water that we can make, hard iced teas or whatever, lemonades, and then the rest is like a concentration, almost like a little bouillon cube of People Skills or Red Rage, and we rehydrate that, and now we have a full batch of our non-alcoholic. And one of my goals on this trip was to try to get a picture of the President of the United States holding a can of Zero People Skills, or not. But I was unsuccessful. Yeah, I think he's got handlers that would never allow that to happen. So, yeah.
So you're back home now, back to the real world. But I would imagine there's some spillover from this. Just meeting all these people, making all these new connections. Like I don't know if the president's going to be showing up at the the tap house anytime soon. But what do you hope comes of it?
Well, yeah, you're right. And one of the things that's just such an honor is to be able to serve, in our way. Like I've spent a lot of years. I know I was put on this planet for service. That's why I left my government military job and started a craft brewery. I just love serving. I wanna host. I wanna bring great people together and share great moments, with great folks, sharing great stories over great food and great drink. That's why I'm on this planet. So whenever I get a chance to do that, at this level, holy smokes, it's pretty awesome. So I would say that coming away from something like this and having the government of Canada acknowledging, that we do what we do the way that we do it at this level is one of the greatest things I could ever ask for. And so, of course, we're getting inundated now with a lot of the military and the police and RCMP units that are heading back home to Ottawa or Montreal. They're coming through the brewery on their way home to finally try the barbecue since they didn't get it out in Kananaskis. And then some of the leaders as well. Prime Minister Mark Carney was hopeful to get some more barbecue for his the final Oilers watch party he had, but unfortunately he's got his team that was like, we already have plans. Yeah, and so maybe if he had some barbecue, we would have won. But other than that, Prime Minister Macron, his team, the service team, were so in love with it. He's got this amazing gentleman. I think it's the private service. He's like a butler, and he's in charge of everything at the Palace d'Elysée or whatever. It's kind of like the White House of the French Prime Minister. And he gave me his personal card and this amazing, it's like a little medal from the palace, and said, we need you to get you to France. We need you to cook for the Prime Minister again. He loved it. This is so great. And, coming away from an event like this with offers to go to other countries and cook for world leaders because they enjoyed the barbecue or the beer, it seems like a dream. It doesn't seem like real life.
And a great showcase, as we mentioned. I mean, what's your sense of where, just in terms of the craft beer industry in Alberta? I mean, just really tough times through the pandemic. Now for everyone to kind of get their footing, get back in the groove of things. I know right now with tariffs and there's all of that. Still, maybe a hope that we can open things up within Canada. But where are things at right now in your view?
Well, it was hard, boy. We almost lost everything during the pandemic as well. It was a razor's edge on if we would make it or not. And I think like now that we've come out of it and gotten through that, we're having the best year we've ever had in Toolshed. So it's there's still some, I think, some of the whiplash effect where, holy crap, the industry just got started. All these breweries come up, and then the reverse of that whiplash is, yikes, there's a lot of breweries that are huge. And then the pandemic shutting the whole world down. This has been tumultuous to say the least. I think that one of the things that's defined Toolshed is I'm like a cockroach. We have to find a way to survive, and we've prided ourselves on is sometimes it takes the last second 3-point buzzer beater, and other times it takes incredible strategy and entrepreneurial disruptive thinking. But you just don't stop. You got to figure it out, and we're getting into a better time now, and I think it's just really perspective. Like whatever happens is going to happen. I didn't expect the pandemic, but we figured it out. So now that the story is tariffs, well, you got to have a different perspective on that as well. So every time I get interviewed about the tariffs, I go, oh, thank goodness for the tariffs. At long last, I had a reason to really sharpen my pencil and focus a little bit more longer term on cash flow and supply chain, because I can't buy from the States anymore. So I don't save cash flow by buying one pallet of aluminum cans at a time. I need to buy a full sea can from China, and that's a lot more money. It takes a lot more time for shipping, but it actually lowers my cost of goods going into my product. So if I could be a little better with cash flow, forecast a bit further down the road, plan for the obvious need for cans in a better way, well, this is actually a benefit to my business. So, and the other side of it is, the premiers are actually talking about breaking down these interprovincial barriers. So this is a positive. I think we actually needed a catalyst this significant to really get them to the table. And it's not over yet. It's still a very poignant, discussion on all of their plates. And so I want to promote that and push that and support those conversations so we can make this country a little bit more free flowing between provinces, right? So I think,
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue both ways. I'm an eternal optimist, maybe, but we're pushing for it as best we can, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, what a week it's been for you. Much more, of course, as mentioned, toolshedbrewing.com. Great beer, great barbecue, and a great experience for you, Graham Sherman. Thanks so much for joining us here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Hope to see you back at the brewery soon.
Absolutely.